People have been killed and others wounded in a series of shootings in Cumbria. In the last few minutes, police say they have found the body of the suspect, named as Derek Bird, a 52-year-old taxi driver from Roa near Frizzington. Police were initially called at around 10:30 this morning after shots were fired, firstly in Whitehaven, then in Seascale and Egremont. Hundreds of armed officers have been involved in the massive police search, which appears to have ended with the death of Derek Bird in woods near the village of Boot in West Cumbria. People in the area had been urged to be vigilant and to remain indoors if possible. Let's go straight to our reporter Chris Stewart, who's in Whitehaven. And Chris, just in the last few minutes, police confirming to you that development about Derek Bird.
Yes, just a short while ago, Derek Bird, the man believed to be responsible for a series of shootings throughout this county, has been found dead in woodland. We understand he has shot himself dead. This incredible series of crimes began here in Duke Street in Whitehaven town centre. If we look at Duke Street, this is normally an incredibly peaceful place. 29 minutes past 10 this morning, it was its usual peaceful self. At 10:30, shots were heard here and a man was shot dead. I can tell you that in that street, as we speak, the body of that man is still lying and is still to be recovered. The street was immediately cordoned off. People working in the shops and officers were led to safety from the rear of those shops by police, who were here within minutes. And other officers around, they were told basically to lock themselves in. That, as I say, was at 10:30 this morning. The incident then moved to the village of Gosforth, 20 minutes drive from here, where I understand another man was shot dead. He is a farmer and he was shot dead in a field at point blank range. The incident then moved on again. It moved across to Egremont. It moved to Seascale. Seascale is right next to the huge Sellafield complex. 16,000 people work at Sellafield, and something happened there that has never happened before. The entire plant was locked down. People weren't allowed to leave for their safety, and those who were due to turn up for work were told not to turn up. The incident moved on yet again, moved across the Central Lakes towards the village of Boot, where Derek Bird is understood to have ditched the car in which he was travelling and then tried to escape on foot. With me now is Stuart Hyde, who's the Deputy Chief Constable of Cumbria. This investigation still goes on, of course, Mr. Hyde, and I know that you're not willing to answer an awful lot of questions, but you do have a statement for us. Could you give us that, please?
Yes, I can say that just before 2 o'clock today, the body of a man that we believe to be Mr. Bird was found in the wooded area of Boot. Can I first of all express on behalf of everyone our condolences to the families and friends and colleagues of those that have either lost their lives or been injured in this crisis. I'd also like to thank the population of Cumbria and those visiting for their patience and forbearance over the last few hours in helping us to try and bring this operation to a conclusion. It has been a very difficult and, as you said, a very unusual set of circumstances. We have issued a helpline number which is 0800 096 0095 for concerned friends and relatives to ring if they want information or if they want to provide us with any help. Our focus now is to the investigation is to find out what has happened to Mr. Bird over the last few hours particularly, and I would plead with those people that may have seen him or have witnessed any of the incidents, particularly the shootings, please come forward and speak to us so that we can piece together exactly what has happened over the last few hours with Mr. Bird leading to these circumstances. Finally, we did ask for people who were sheltering earlier just to stay indoors, particularly in the Boot area. I would like to thank them for their patience and their forbearance, and please carry on and go about your normal day's business as normal as you can in these circumstances. Thank you.
Which suggests, thankfully, that this incident is now at a close.
It's certainly not closed for us. We've got a lot of work to do, and we'll be continuing to do that. And a bit later on this afternoon, we'll update you on a whole range of things that have been going on. Thank you.
I know you're unwilling to speak further, but it is important perhaps to stress that the nature of Cumbria, a very sparsely populated area, made this a difficult investigation. It is crisscrossed with thousands of roads. That made it difficult for you.
Yes, it's a difficult environment, but we have a police force here and emergency services and all the people that have helped us that have been exceptional and we've been able, hopefully, to bring this to a conclusion. But we've got a lot of work to do now to sort out exactly what caused it and what Mr. Bird has been doing in the last few hours. Thank you.
Can I ask one thing before you disappear, Mr. Hyde? We have been told 11 shootings and a number of fatalities among them. Are you able to say whether that figure is correct or not?
At this stage, all I can say is that we'll give an update later on. There have been fatalities. I want to ensure that all families and friends have been informed before I start issuing numbers. Thank you.
You want to find out what Mr. Bird was doing in the 24 hours prior to 10:30 this morning. Does that suggest that something else has been happening in that time?
I think I've concluded the answers that I want to give at this stage. Thank you.
Thanks ever so much for that, Mr. Hyde. Well, as you can hear from Mr. Hyde there, not willing to go into great details, and perhaps that's understandable given the nature and scale of this incredible series of crimes, but we do have it that there have been 11 shootings at different crime scenes throughout this county, and that there have been a number of fatalities. The final fatality, it seems, is Derek Bird himself, the man thought to be responsible, a taxi driver, aged 52, from the village of Frizzington, not far away from here. Now, also, who's a man who's just about to join me here is Councillor John Kane. Councillor Kane, your ward actually covers this part of town. Presumably, a lot of people have been telling you what's been going on. Can you tell us?
Well, I'm led to believe there's been an incident involving 2 taxi drivers. The guy that actually has done the damage and been going around shooting people is a taxi driver. I don't know if there's been a fallout, a bit of a feud between the two, I'm not sure. But I don't believe it's any crime-related activities, not drugs or anything like that. I think it's just been, the lad has actually become mentally unstable.
Do you know Derek Bird?
I do know Derek Bird. He's from the Frizzington Rowley area, which is about 6 miles out of Whitehaven. But he's well known on the taxi rank.
What sort of man was he?
To be honest, you'd think he's very placid, very quiet man, kept himself to himself. So I believe something has actually pushed him over the edge.
Was this man known to be a gun owner?
Not that I'm aware of. I wasn't aware that he owned any guns. But he's not. He was a really, really quiet person, kept himself to himself.
This is a very peaceful town. I think we must stress, this is not a big centre of population, and this is not really what Whitehaven expects. A lot of shock here right now.
In Whitehaven, we probably have one of the lowest crime areas in the country. For something like this to happen, it's unreal. It hasn't really sunk in with the people yet. It's never been known before.
Okay, John Kane, thank you very much for the moment. You can see from John Kane there is a real sense of shock here, and absolutely understandably, as I say, 10:29, this place was peace itself. 10:30, chaos ensued, and not just here, but throughout the county. A string of crime scenes has unfolded, and we now have a number of people dead. We believe there to have been 11 people shot altogether, not all of those fatalities. There are some of those people who have been injured. The police are actually still, at this moment, trying to find the families of those who have been caught up in this. There are people there who perhaps still don't realise that it's one of their relatives who perhaps has been injured, or worse still, shot dead. Matthew, this goes on. It's an unbelievable story here.
It is, and Chris, we will return to you in a little while. Thanks very much for now. Let's speak now to Mike Saunders, who's the house manager of the Seascale Golf Club, one of the areas where the gunman struck. And thank you very much for joining us here on BBC News. I wonder if you could start by just describing what happened where you are.
Well, basically, the area is in shock at the moment. There's been rumour and speculation as to what happens, and as the tales unfurled, it's become apparent. There's been apparently 2 killed in our village and 1 seriously injured, and we've just had the floods, now the bus crash last week, and now this, and it's just more than most people can bear, I think, in this area.
What did you see and hear?
Well, we didn't see anything. I'm in the golf club, but the village car park is at the beach, so we didn't actually see or hear anything apart from police activity. But, it's just everybody coming into the golf club. Everybody's in shock, really.
Yes, everyone was urged to get inside and stay inside. It must have been terrifying.
Absolutely. I mean, as I say, we were just people just sitting silently watching the television, looking for the news. It's devastating for the families and those concerned.
And you will have seen the picture, we're seeing it now on our screens, of Derek Bird. Whilst you were inside the golf club, I mean, did any of the people in there actually know this man?
Well, people have said they do. Yeah, some people have said that they know of him. You know, but obviously it's a small area, and we have a lot of members from outside the village. So yes, people did know him, or knew of him anyway.
And some relief at the developments that this does now appear to have been concluded.
Yes, obviously it's a relief. Obviously not for his family, I suppose. I mean, there's victims everywhere now, isn't there?
There is. Mike Saunders, thanks very much for taking time to speak to us. That Mike Saunders, the house manager of Seascale Golf Club. And you see there on the map, the shooting started in Whitehaven. Police called around 10:30. And just going through the geography of this, because the next shooting was reported in Egremont, about 10 minutes south of Whitehaven. Then another shooting reported in Gosforth, just a short while away, about 10 minutes further south of Egremont. And Seascale, where we were speaking there to Mike Saunders, where of course there was reports of another shooting. And Sellafield nearby, we've had reports of course that the workers there were actually ordered to stay inside. They had a lockdown there whilst the police searched for this gunman. Let's speak now to Barry McAlevey, who's in Whitehaven, who heard the shots earlier in the morning. Mike, tell us more.
Hello?
Tell us more about what you saw and heard.
Well, I live on Coach Road, which is about half a mile from Duke Street, where the first shooting took place. I was in the garden and I heard this almighty bang. At first I thought two cars had collided, so I made my way to the front garden, and there was a taxi parked it had stopped in the road. Its driver's side window was all smashed in, and there's this lady, presumably a passenger, that got out of the front seat, followed by the taxi driver, and they ran down the passageway of the house that was next to the road. She was screaming. About 10-15 seconds later, a policeman followed them down, and then a police van came down the road and took off, I presume, pursuit of whoever had fired this shot. I stood there and watched, and about half a minute later, the policeman fetched this man back and the woman, and his hand was all covered in blood, and his side of his face had been covered in blood. Apparently he'd been shot in the hand and neck. And as I say, I thought that was the only incident. I hadn't heard about the one that had happened in Duke Street, which is, as I say, half a mile away. This was about 11:15, so it must have been after the first incident, definitely.
You must have been in shock seeing all of this just happening in front of you.
Yeah, at first it was, as I say, you just don't expect anything like this round here. Whitehaven is such a quiet town, and you just do not expect things like this happening, not outside your door. It was like Chicago.
And then you will have watched and heard how there were incidents just happening.
The paramedics came after about 2 or 3 minutes. A paramedic came, attended to the man, and then a big red car came up with officers that weren't in uniform. I think they were task force policemen anyhow, because they were in like dark boiler suits with all sorts of gear on, and they cordoned the area off. And we were stood there watching what was going on, and then the policeman must have had a phone call, told us all to go in the house in case the person who was driving the car came back this way, so we just headed off back home. But as I say, where I live, I can say exactly, the taxi still stood there with a policeman beside it.
Well, Barry McAlevey in Whitehaven, thank you very much for talking to us. Let's speak now to Dr. Barry Walker, a GP for 30 years in Seascale, and thanks for being with us. Now, you tended some of the people who'd been shot, didn't you?
Yeah, I was called by my surgery to go and help my colleagues who were attending a live casualty, and then as I was attending that person, passers-by asked me to go and see other people further through the village, and there were 2 further people who had been shot and killed by the gunman, lying on pavements further through the village.
And I take it also that you actually knew one of the victims who you were trying to help, didn't you?
Yes, one of the victims who was shot dead was very well known in the village, both as obviously as a patient of ours, but also as someone who was known very well as a personality in the village, and also, as I've now found out, that one of the other victims locally is very well known in West Cumbria. So this is going to affect the community as a whole. I think it's going to affect them quite severely. We've also got to think about the firemen who were attending the scene, because when I got there, obviously the ambulance service and police weren't available because they were attending incidents throughout West Cumbria at the time, and the local firemen, again, who would know the victims, were severely traumatised by the incident. And I guess all of us are going to have problems adjusting to this in the next few days.
Well, Doctor, I know it's been an extremely distressing day, but thank you for taking time to speak to us. Let's return finally to Chris Stewart, who's in Whitehaven for us. And Chris, a lot of information still to learn, what started today's events, but more crucially, just the amount of people, the exact number of those killed and those injured.